Hi guys, Ashley here. Today I'm bringing you Josh Gardner from Kung Fu Data. We're going to talk about Chinese consumers. We're going to talk about the TP partners. We're going to talk about JD stores. We're going to talk about China's post-COVID-19 new realities. Josh, phenomenal to have you on the show.
Hey, Ashley, this is really fun. I'm really glad. And I haven't seen you in a long time. It's odd that I'm seeing you this time, not in person, but actually on a Zoom conference. So it's very COVID.
Oh, it is very COVID. New realities right here. Josh, I know that you're talking a lot about modern Chinese consumers. You're working with essentially a lot of brands, Western brands that are coming to China. You're helping them set up Tmall stores, JD stores, and you understand modern Chinese consumers very well. Tell me, how are they really different from Western consumers in general? I know that you talk about reciprocity being different, about them being very demanding. So what are the top three things that really set them aside?
I think, it's more than three, right?
I'll give you more.
I think first of all, China is so big. People lump Chinese into all one basket. But actually, you lived in China for a very long time. I know that. And you know that every single place in China is different. There are 400 or so nationalities in China, like minorities. I used to live with one of them in Yunnan many years ago. And so the cultural difference, language differences, and preferences in every region, in every major city, it's totally different. It's like a different planet, right? I mean, some of the things look the same, but in the end, people have very different tastes. So if you do something funny, like you look at sea cucumbers, where they're eaten and searched, you see like none in the north and like 80% in the south in like two provinces. Stuff like this just blows my mind that it's that different. So one, they're different in every way because there's so many of them. It's and there's so many different kinds of Chinese people, right? And cultures within a culture. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Second, I think as a consumer, like marketer, you have to look at a few profiles I think that are really important. One is the one that most of us are exposed to are the millennials. And there's 400 million of them. So that's like 40% more than the US population, right? That's just one consumer subset, and they have huge purchasing power. And they're the ones driving a lot of brand activations. Their behavior is unique. Something I just posted recently is they don't search using search engines. They don't look for things. They only search for brands. So they get their, their sort of signal to buy something through a lot of different influence nodes in their world. And it's through friends and family and networks and relationships and their immediate social circle. And mastery of that sort of path to purchase is the key to success on the way in. And people that can go all the way back and find the true moment that someone really decides to say yes to a type of a brand or a product, I think if you can master that moment, you're in really good shape. Because then when you get to me, at the bottom of the funnel, you've got brand equity, and it's easy for us to make things happen for you and be successful. So that's one big thing. I think no one realizes how huge, dynamic, and powerful China's commerce ecosystems are. And Chinese, so for example, Alibaba is an example, the consumer behavior, it's an entertainment platform. It's like Hollywood of shopping. It's shoppertainment, right? So you know this, you've been a part of the show, going to the, and dealing with it on 11/11, but it really is showmanship, and essentially all the functionality and features that we use on our phones and devices in 20 apps is in every single Tmall store. As a merchant, you have the power of a major agency like WPP at your fingertips. You can run a home shopping network stream. You can do affiliate marketing. You can do any kind of marketing and activation within the platform. So the ecosystem is huge, diverse, centrally integrated, and the experience is community driven. So you really have to get your reputation and your sort of brand strength metrics to a certain level to resonate with consumers. And they are different, and they do take a different path to purchase. They might spend a day of time researching a thing over time through like 100 different applications, and then ask their friends what they think before they even consider buying it. So by the time they go into a shop and or into a platform to look, they're actually searching for a very specific brand, right? In our store portfolio, I think only 15 to 17% of any transactions originate in actual search, like search function, looking for a thing. It's really, they're looking for a specific brand of thing. So it's
they know what they
unique.
want, right? They know what they want very clearly.
Yeah, and they're there for, now they're talking to you, say, what can you do on price? Can I get a free gift? Can I do this? So another big thing I think is very unique for China is about 40% of the sales in the stores we run are by human hand.
Mm.
It's amazing, right? Chinese people want to talk to you. They want a deal. They like treat you like you're a vendor in a store, and they want to speak to you and negotiate, like, you know, some type of deal, something, either a discount, a free gift, you know, some kind of benefits program when they're buying a simple thing from you, to have a lot of assurances that it's real, that it's authentic, and that you're going to deliver the value they can get from someone else. So understand, they consider it a very personal experience. So it's almost like you're doing assisted shopping all day long. And those consumers are super demanding. I think a couple of unique things. They do bargain, even at retail. Like, you can have a retail price, it's irrelevant. You and I both.
They say
the
"多少
right?
right? They say
Yeah,
what is the discount
exactly.
on this?
Exactly. And if you're on Taobao, I know that you negotiate. I know you're like, nah, that's not, you know, I can get it from here, da, 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 right? I do too. I've become like that. I mean, I shop the same way now. I figure out what I want first through networks, and then I use the engine to find the best merchant, or the person that I feel I can trust the most is the best deal, right, for that product. So I think that's a unique thing for Westerners, because they're not shopping things or prices, right? They're not buying stuff. They're buying something that was a brand that represents, like a signal that represents goodness for something that they need in their life. And it could be almost anything, right? So those are some pretty big differences, right? And there are many more. I'm just giving you examples of what we have to deal with.
A lot of brands are crying, and they feel this is a total nightmare entering that market and dealing with that complexity. Essentially, I think the most shocking barrier is once they get through those deals and they realize how much CRM and management and customer service there is in order to keep your customer happy. It's not just, it doesn't stop when you made a deal and you sold it, right? The journey's just begun. I mean, you just start with those negotiations, and you know, the person is going to send you 150 messages, and you're going to message a person and ask for a good review or bad review and blah, 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 all that. So how shall Western brands manage this complexity?
I think a couple of things. One, and I have a really good friend who's built like 3 or 4 businesses in China that are really, really successful. He has a philosophy, no matter where he does business, local people. So that's just how he says it. He says just local people. I think what he means in some sense is you need to have resources and staff that really understand the complexity, but most importantly, the operational intensity of consumer expectation. And if you can't find them and resource them properly, the project's going to struggle no matter what. It's going to be miserable for people, right? So I think that's my first thought is, if you can't really do diet China, right? There's no such thing. It's a contact sport. It's like rugby. You're on the field and it's a tackle, right? It's tough. And I think for most people, I recommend being very hands-on. I know you have been, and you know what I'm saying. It's true. It doesn't matter if you're a Westerner working with Westerners in China, with Chinese doing the opposite, doing import or export, no matter what, you can't get away from this, right? And I think the consumer knows that, and they don't trust easily in China. And that's the part that, so they make the process, the relationship to get them to buy from you much more complicated and difficult, because they're testing you. They're seeing if you have the strength to survive the dip, right? The big dip, right? To get to the other side. If you do, you're considered very special, and then you get a lot more respect and loyalty, and they come back. But you have to survive that up front. So let's call it hazing, right? And if you can get past that, you can build really, really strong and loyal clients, because they don't trust anyone else. And not many people are willing to go through that. I know when you signed your first contract with a Chinese client, you're like, this was the worst experience I ever had. And you do it like 4 or 5 other times. Yeah, you do it like 5 times and then 20 times, and then you swear to yourself you're never going to do it again. And then about a year or two later, you realize actually they then become the best customers. The other ones are kind of flaky and they're loyal and they pay, they torture you, but you get paid and they pay well. And then they become very strong in terms of revenue base and support. So I think it's a lot like other places in Asia where you have to build that trust through a cultural wall, like a shield that prevents them from getting taken advantage of, or themselves and their friends. So it's kind of like, you got to get through that. If you're not willing to go through that big dip, then don't go, right? I think you can't get away with cheap, easy, quick. It just doesn't work in China. It really doesn't. And I think you'd be better off activating China outside of China than to actually go in and build an operation that is not funded properly. And I see this all the time. And funding, it's just resource. You don't have to spend a lot of money. It depends on your category, right? It really depends on who is doing this for you, right? And whether for that category, that product, you're resourcing the account with enough capital and or product and or assets to drive your success. If you don't do that, you will never survive. Like they're going to eat you alive because again, they put up those barriers and they're huge. Even the consumer is a massive barrier, right? You got to be willing to do that. The other side of that, like our business has been around 6 years, right? So on the other side of that is goodness, right? You have a reputation. You've got lots of clients who are your champions. The network gets very strong. And then if someone else wants to come in and disrupt you, they have to be willing to go through 6 years of hell, right? You got to be willing to go through the trench to get to the other side. And so that's true whether you're selling a phone or whether you're building a business to business, you're selling to restaurants. It really doesn't make a difference in China. There is a big, big moat between you and the castle. And you've got to build a bridge, and it takes time. And there's
or
a lot
a
of
tunnel.
alligators. Yeah, and you can't really drain the swamp. It's filled with alligators. You got to build a bridge over it. That's kind of how it works.
No, that's beautiful. I love how you describe it. I think I have this mental picture very clear right now, that pond with alligators. What about COVID-19? Do you feel that customers post this crisis that we are all going through right now are going to be different? Are they going to be significantly different or just slightly different? Are they going to stay the same? And do Western companies have to work harder or less hard post this crisis to, again, capture and win trust and loyalty of Chinese customers, in your view?
Oh, this is good stuff. Okay, so this is, I knew you asked this question. This question is not going to be easy to answer because I don't think there's a straight answer. I can tell you what's happened in our portfolio, right? Because we have, let's say, 15 stores between Tmall and JD, right? So we have people in certain categories are really struggling, and I think they're going to struggle for some time. So if you're attached to the travel industry, movement other than domestic, like international travel is tough. Anything related to that, products related to that, it's still really low. F&B, like restaurants, hotels, hospitality, it's miserable. And there's no way to get around it. I have 2 clients who, essentially their businesses globally are shut down, right? It's not just in China. It hasn't recovered in China or anywhere else. Yeah. They're down on average 80%, but can be higher, 85 for some people. And that's the same with friends who are attached to those industries. They're still in that holding pattern of, hey, are people going to travel again? Are people going to go to places again and eat out and things? So even though things are open, and I'm sure, you've heard from friends in Shanghai and stuff that, oh, it's great, it's back. It's really not back, right? It's not back yet. And it's like 30% of capacity. So that's the negative. Positives. February was horrible. That was just crap, right? For everyone. I didn't happen to be in the face mask business during February, right? Or like sanitizers, but
missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't happen to target those kind of brands, but I think outside of those obvious necessities, which did grow super fast, the spike has dropped post-COVID. So that was just an immediate 1.5 month thing. And I looked at the data and it is stabilized, but it's not up again. What I have seen though, March was massive for us. So we had a huge rebound, and only those 2 clients I told you about. The rest of the portfolio was up pretty significantly over last year, March, and that's in 15 different categories. So, you know, it's consistently doing well across a whole range of products. One of our clients, you know, in February, I was worried, they sell beer, right? And you would think, you know, this is craft beer. I mean, would someone not drink this? But apparently during COVID, people were really freaking out. They're home, they just didn't want to drink. But in March, we were up 2,600% over last March. Same month. Insane. 200 times.
They went like,
yes.
now it's beer party. We go cloud clubbing.
Yes. And we did, to push that off, we actually did live stream with Austin Lee, which like doubled, tripled sales. I mean, it was just nuts. So that part is very positive. That's the rebound. It's there. I was worried with the blowback from the States cutting off export or the traction that, you know, Chinese consumption would be adversely affected in theory. However, April, our numbers are holding, and it's week to week, it's still growth. It's not like the kind of growth we had before, right? But it's still growing every week before the other week. And then in addition to that, I think people need to know that there is growth and there is risk. But one thing that I don't think Westerners realize is we as employers, I have 55 staff, you can't lay them off, okay? There are severe consequences to this in China. Some people obviously had to do it, but for everyone that's business is still doing okay, you know, you may do some type of compensation or deferment, but in the end, the stability of employment was in place. So China secured a couple of major things: pharmacy and supplies, grocery and supplies, delivery and the supplies for deliveries, okay, as well as employment. And so what that means,
stabilize it all.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be okay. Now, that's not to say that if the world continues to collapse, it's not going to have a bad impact. It's had an impact on our revenue from clients, like squeezes on retainers, cuts on our monthly fees, frozen budgets, you know, marketing delays, things like this. But we had that wave happen end of March and early April, and then it's fine now, you know. So everyone, I think that wave passed, and unless things get really bad in Europe and the US, I don't think we're going to see another wave. On the positive side, China's rebound is substantial, and it is in almost every category. Like I said, it's very few are suffering. I still think like women's handbags are a little bit rough right now, and some fashion that is involved with travel, but other women's products like cosmetics and personal care stuff we're in is really doing well, like super well. And like I said, even things like beer. How about motorcycles?
Kitchen supplies, all the kitchen supplies and electronic devices are also going through the roof. Everybody's cooking right now. Everybody wants to, you know, now you're stuck at home and you spend a lot more time at home. So now you have all this, I do not know, ventilators, those machines that are helping you iron your bed when you are away. Like all this crazy stuff that I see people buy, and I go like, oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's true. And they got like microphones, they're buying all kinds of electronics. They're learning how to cook, hand mixers, like all of our clients doing that stuff, like home goods, they're doing super well. Even like personal audio, we're up 400% over February. And one of my clients doing earbuds, because they're like super high end, very nice wireless, and they integrate with like, you know, both cellular and they can do Bluetooth on desktops and laptops very, very well. They're doing super good, right? Like the growth is huge. It is sort of related to COVID, but I don't know. It's if you look at the whole portfolio, we're up except in 3 categories. Like it's like, you know, out of 15, there's only 3 doing badly. So 20% stinks. And then the other 80% is not even flat. They're growing, not as fast as they used to, but some of them are up 100%, 80, 2,000, 400. You know, it really depends on my account, and it's, but overall it's over 100%. And I hate doing that because it sounds like I'm gloating. It's just, you had to have looked at like end of January, February. I'm not gloating. I'm just grateful. Right? Because, you know, like end of January to February was the worst 6 weeks ever. We were down like 90%. It's just March made up for it. So my quarter ended not total crap is the way I'm telling you. It's like it wasn't hitting my targets, but it's significantly up over last year, same quarter. Not totally down, or like at least up 5 or 10%, something. If you look at March combined with February and January, it's okay. It's not crap. It's not really bad.
I think it's really good compared to what's happening in the rest of the world. I don't think anybody, outside of China is going to have any kind of plus compared to last year Q1 or Q2 so it's a very different reality. So you're doing really, really well. That's awesome.
I also think we have we are fortunate to be in e-commerce, which of course, if I was in physical retail, I would be crying right now. So I think we are benefiting significantly from the channel that we manage for people. And it happens to be the most important channel right now globally, but especially in China. And during this COVID, it's now even more important because there's a seamless, there was no transition. We didn't have an issue with like massive amounts of things disappearing from physical stores that costs a lot of money to maintain, right? So like the traffic drops, okay, right? It's not like you're losing millions of dollars a month per location. So I think we are lucky in that we're not in a space that's dramatically impacted. That's really true, and will benefit, I guess, continuously. Digital will benefit from this for a while.
Absolutely. COVID is definitely digitalizing the world, and China is ahead of everybody else. Looking at e-commerce platforms in China, you're working with Tmall a lot and Taobao, you're working with JD, perhaps Pinduoduo. Tell me, what is your favorite e-commerce platform in China this year, 2020, and why do you like it so much?
Well, I mean, that's such a loaded question. You have some very
you can explain and talk about both or all three.
I think let's see, Pinduoduo I have the least experience with, but they have done extremely well during COVID because of the deep discounting that they offer, the group buy. The issue with Pinduoduo that I've seen is that you have to have something that's hyper consumable and really inexpensive. In that way, it's an awesome platform. For most of my clients, it's not, because they are premium positioned products and brands, and it doesn't have the reputation yet to support that. I think between JD and Tmall, the most significant difference, besides from the cost to operate or the intensity of operation being different, is the volume. So we produce 70 to 80% of our volume in Tmall versus JD. But I still think JD is a great platform. It's fun to work with them in some ways because it's simpler. It's more like Amazon. There's less work for us to do. We don't have to do so much customer service. We don't have to spend so much time with marketing because it's very event driven. It's like flash selling, and it's easy to maintain, and the consumer buys quicker, higher conversion rates. However, it's more expensive to operate there, ironically, on a cost per conversion basis, because JD logistics is so expensive, and you have to discount all the time in advance to get volume. So this part bothers me about it. And in general, there are other little quirks because they're competing with Alibaba all the time. They'll do midnight sales that you don't even know about on your clients' brands. And then I get a call in the morning, hey, what are you doing? This kind of thing. So there's a little of that. You have to manage it, but it is an easier platform as an operator to manage for a client. And in some categories, like during COVID categories, let's call it like 3C, like electronics, home goods, even sporting goods, it's really performed well for my customers in those categories. But Tmall itself is the beast, right? It is the mecca for commerce in China, and it's more than that. It's like I said, it's entertainment. So we wouldn't do any kind of activation or marketing in JD because the platform does not really have the tools to do that. So if you're a marketer, you love Tmall, and I love that because I'm a marketer, right? You would too, right? You can do anything you want, and it's pretty amazing, the freedom and the technology available to you for free. And because of that, it's a little more complicated and hard to operate and operationally more intense. But you get much more volume, and it is lower cost to sell. in the platform. So those are the basic differences. So if you ask my favorite, I mean, for me, it's where the volume is, right? So it has to be, I have to say Tmall. I mean, most of the business is there. And I think it's going to remain there. I think Alibaba is going to do very well as a result of COVID, long term. I think it'll strengthen their position. Lots of things are changing though. So I think if you don't have an integrated sort of path to purchase from point of interest to transaction in Tmall, I think you're going to have a problem soon. I think you can't just come in and open a store and make hay. That's been the case for a long time. But now it's really like the category managers, the Xiao'er, are requiring unbelievable amounts of marketing skill and integrated marketing efforts, amplification, influence coming into Taobao and Tmall during and while you market your products and services. And, Tmall itself is sort of the confluence of three things that I think are the most important and probably represent the difference with China. It's a combination of community, commerce, and influence in one place with all the tools to do the things you want to do. And those three things to send the right, let's call it the signaling to the consumer to buy from you, to choose your brand over something else and help you along in the purchase journey and do the assisted shopping. So I think that's where the trust comes in. And I think that platform has done the most, the fastest, and they're clever, right? As an example, seeing the what Douyin was and knowing they couldn't buy Douyin, they integrated Douyin
They
before
build
WeChat.
it.
That's right. And doing that, they blocked Tencent from controlling social commerce, as an example. And so they've done a lot of very, very clever things. And of course, pioneering live stream shopping was genius in and of itself. Sort of, hey, this QVC, home shopping model in the States and Japan and stuff, this is great. Why don't we just put it in our platform and make it available to every merchant? That's very powerful. To be able to run your own TV studio, you do, right? I mean, it's amazing. I see your stuff. It's great. I mean, it's amazing what you can do with this technology. And they've just made it accessible, cost-effective, or even free. And so you have the tools, and the question is, do you have the talent? And that's really what it's all about. You have the mustard, you have the brand strength, you have the resources, do you have the right thing at the right time? Because it's tough, like I said, to get through that big wall of competition. But I think if you positioned yourself well and you have the right things in place and you know how to do integrated marketing, real-time integrated marketing, I think it's amazing to use that platform. I think it's a huge opportunity. But I'll tell you, most brands are totally unprepared for it. So that operational intensity is nothing like they've ever seen in their lives.
Yeah, they need to have marketers, they need to have project managers, people that understand live streaming, they need to have customer service, they need to have, they need to handle logistics. It's super crazy. And this is all part of just one ecosystem. And you cannot just market within this closed ecosystem, right? I was just chatting with Alibaba not so long ago, and we were talking about their recommendations for essentially opening stores, right? And they were saying that, we look at the brand and we tell them, okay, yes, you fit what we are looking for. And now we would like to see your plan. So how are you planning to activate within Alibaba ecosystem, but also outside of Alibaba ecosystem? In other words, what is your budget that you want to invest, to maintain the store, to market, to promote within Tmall? And how much money are you going to putting on other social media platforms, on other digital platforms? And we're going to tell you, does it make sense or not? And I was like, this is really cool. And depending on the brand, they also give that breakdown. Is it going to be 30% in Alibaba, 70% outside? Is it going to be 60% here and 40% outside? But it's very, very interesting.
So I'm glad you brought that up. We actually work with the head of marketing for Tmall, and on a daily basis. And every big category manager, because we do all domestic stores for the most part, they're all like, they're very serious. Like, you want to get into an event now, they send you that spreadsheet. It's more than seeing a plan. They actually have very specific instructions. How many of what kind of KOL you're going to do in this channel, this channel, this channel. We get a list like this big.
Like that.
of stuff we have to do that has nothing to do with them, and a list for them. Like, we just did an amazing event last week for an electronics event. And my client is like a hot brand globally. This is the audio brand. and they in order to get into this incubation program with Alibaba, where you got the attention of the marketing director, they've got to do a lot of jumping through hoops and stuff. I mean, they signed Steve Harrington to do all the assets, right? Famous streetwear artists. They had, I don't know, 5 or 6 kinds of amplification outside of the platform. Inside, there was like massive amounts of activity. It took my team like a month to prepare for this one event. Insane, right? It's insane. And they are actually quite skilled. They look at your KOLs and they audit the agencies. So we don't, because we're the operator, we're typically not the marketing agency, right? We don't do those, right? But we sometimes assign them, or we get to look at their, what they're going to do. We try to integrate activity. Well, they have to submit also to Alibaba. Alibaba goes through and says, this KO is crap. Switch this one. No, you need to use this. Absolutely, you're not in the event. Like, they're actually putting quality control around agencies and operators. It used to just be abusing us. Now everyone else gets abused, which is kind of fun. Because from my standpoint, we should all be under the same pressure to perform. I mean, it's as a TP, it's brutal. And I'm seeing them put very high pressure on agency output, which I think is good for the brand. I think everyone now is going to be much more honest about what needs to be done to be successful in China. And it's not about how much you spend, but I think you said it best. It's about how much you do in and out. Right? It's all the things you do. You can't just do one thing. You got to do all of them, or you're not in, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, and this is exciting, and that's why there are so many opportunities. Not everybody is going to go into this market. Not everybody is prepared and is going to be successful as well. Apart from just doing, it's also about the money. So how much money would you recommend a brand, a mid-sized international brand, to just budget for China entry? They want to be on one platform, just let's say Tmall, and they want to, bring their products, their mid-sized brand from the US, and they are right now looking at the situation post-COVID-19, and they understand that no market is going to give them any growth in 2020 and potentially 2021, but maybe China. What would you recommend them?
Oh, this is tough, right? Because this has all to do with the level of awareness, right? If the brand has strength in China, even if they did it by accident, which by the way is most success for foreigners in China, accidentally good, right? Accidentally, they happen to be in the Daigou networks, right? Or whatever it is, and they do very, very well. If you're highly activated, 2 launches we did in the last year, they only invested 8% of sales, and both companies did, I think one did, just honest numbers, right? One did 10 million RMB in sales, I think, year 1, with 9 months of operation, and one of them did 12. And this year, both of them have already exceeded those numbers, even with COVID, right? One of them's that beer brand. They're up a lot. They're up quite a bit. I expect them to achieve their targets this year, which would be more than double last year, hopefully, right? If things continue. So highly activated brands, the budget is about 8% of turnover plus setup costs and things like that. That's the reality in terms of media spend, marketing spend. Operator cost is anywhere from 8 to 12%, can be as high as 16 to 20, depending on how much revenue you're throwing through. So the numbers are pretty basic. I would assume you need a big margin to do China, because there's a lot of people with a hand in your pocket. We're probably one of the smallest parts of that. I think marketing and sort of share of brand that you have to share in terms of revenue to drive success for low aware brands is very high. So live streamers will look at brands that aren't famous, and you're looking at 40% commission plus fees. And that's very necessary to activate. It can be as high as 50. All right. If you are brand aware, it's 20% plus a fee, just to give people an idea. And that fee ranges. It can be 40,000 RMB for a big wig. It can be a couple hundred for someone who's not so famous. But it's really the percentages that kill you more than anything else. For straight investment, which is what you want to number, an activated brand can get away with under 1 million RMB in investment and do very well. Like be fairly, like at least break even, if not profitable in year 1. Those 2 brands I mentioned were both in year 1 profitable. Ones that are low brand aware, totally different situation.
So
There
if
is a
they are
pretty,
low brand aware, what's happening there?
it just, they don't, so launching in Tmall is competitive and expensive from the standpoint of, remember I told you the operational intensity. So to just have a functional apparatus, you have some ongoing costs. I think if you're going to do Tmall and you can't do, all right, I'll do it a different way. If you're in cosmetics, you have 90% gross margins at retail, then you can probably be profitable with a 5 million RMB store, including all your costs. But if you're doing a normal industry and your gross margin at retail is not 90%,
It's going to take you
and
years.
you need to do at least 10 million RMB. Yeah, you need to do at least 10 million RMB to sort of break even or be profitable. So what we do is we look at that. We say, can they be there? What we say by low brand awareness is we don't think there's a commercial case for a standalone or multi-store network to hit the 10 million number. And what that means is there's just not enough consumers who know, respect, and trust you to drive results. Problem is all the traffic in China is branded. People search for brands, not things. So you need to capture your own traffic to make your SKUs like this superheroes, right? Hero SKUs. You hear that all the time, like hero product collection. What that means is you have something that has enough gravitas to float to the top of the pack, the long tail. They float right up here and sort of knock out the competition and then pull in the rest of the traffic and win over the general market. But you have to start with something small, which is your brand's traffic. Build it enough to drive that result. If you don't have it, you cannot make it. So it's not about a single dollar amount as much as like, have you done the groundwork to justify the launch? And I've seen companies spend 3 to 5 million RMB. I've seen companies spend $1 million. I've seen them do $500,000. And the success rates are about the same depending on the awareness level, right? And I've seen people come in and spend an enormous amount of money and make nothing. And that's because they didn't get the most important thing right. Brand strength is the principal feature. So you've got to get that right first. You have to resonate. And then from there, it's actually very easy to do an evaluation. The good news is a foreign brand outside of China, it's actually quite easy to connect with Chinese consumers. They're hyper digital, social, dynamic, and easy to interface with. You know that. And I think done properly, you can activate them by intention. We put in a incubation service recently, and it's surprisingly effective, depending on the category or the product. But you got to have an unfair advantage, right? You've got to have something that is substantially unique, different, something I can lean on, or it's very hard to be commercially successful. That is true. And the easiest thing for most people to do is activate, right? That's the cheapest, easiest way to win in China. And there's no need to have a store until you've done that, in my view. It's first get people to buy and talk about it in a way, seed the market properly. And then when it's ready, you launch. That's really what it is.
Build a community first and also build the demand first. You can do cross-border first, right? You can sell through bloggers. You can sell through some other stores that take your product for a month, for a flash sale, for whatever you enter the market, see how people respond. And this is also the cheapest way to test it out. Once you understand that, yes, there is potential, then you go through the whole motion and launch in China and get professional team on the ground. That's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Josh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You still had some closing words. Tell us, share your wisdom.
No, I was just going to respond to your last comment and say that is spot on. Just focus on things that are simple, not that expensive, and actually very effective. Like relationships with bloggers, with influence, people that are live streaming and selling cross-border, seeding the market the way you described, like get a bunch of daigous or stores to carry you. Just don't sign away your authorizations. As you know, you don't want to do that. But
make sure that your trademark is registered in China and is protected.
Yes. Say that again. And make sure they know. But I think that is a good place for most people to start. And then you can always come to an operator like us at some point and say, hey, am I ready? And then we'll tell you, because you don't want to be in a position where you're a 0 trying to get to 1 in China. You want to be at 1 before you go to 10.
Oh, this is beautiful. Josh, once again, thank you so much. It was so much value. One of my favorite interviews ever. I absolutely loved chatting with you. Guys, do connect with Josh on LinkedIn. He does wonderful thought leadership on LinkedIn every day. He talks about managing a store. He talks about Chinese consumers. So do connect with him. Check out his company called Kung Fu Data for more information about operating your stores, and check out with them whether they could be the right operator for your specific business. Thank you so much again, and stay tuned for more China experts to come.